Hey guys, welcome to the MagfedRanchPaintball channel, and today I'm going to be doing another Final Inspect Fridays. But before I get into it guys, subscribe to the channel, right? Smash that like button, and of course turn on your notification bell. I'm posting content every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as best as I can. Of course guys, I know this last week I've been super busy moving, doing a bunch of back stuff, getting the shop ready and that type of thing. So had to post it late, so today's video is going to be on the same schedule. Unfortunately, I'm going to be posting this on a Saturday instead of a Friday, but moving forward, I will do my best to post. Now, that being said, guys, today's content, real quick, obviously, watch the whole video, and please, of course, share and comment at the very end. I love all your guys' comments. I think right now, moving forward, I'm going to continue my best to answer all any questions, or, of course, react to any of your guys' comments. And hopefully that'll help you guys. Like I said, I'm trying to give as much information as possible, but of course without breaking any trade secrets, okay? So that being said, guys, today's Final Inspect Fridays is going to be a pre-game checklist of the M17 from Valken. Okay, so just like last week's where I did a pre-game checklist for the T15, today is going to be about the Valken M17. And guys, just real quick, I really love the Valken M17. Currently, I haven't tried the EMF 100, that's full disclosure, but I slightly like the Valken M17 better than the T15 for a couple reasons. One, I love the FPS consistency of the Heatcore blow forward system versus the T15 blowback system. And secondly, I just love the reliability. And of course the cost, right? I've broken this down in another video, but the Valken M17, you're looking at $250 entry level price without an air tank, of course, guys. But an air tank's like 60 or 70 bucks. With just that basic package, you have a very reliable FSR capable marker. But anyways, yeah, let's get into the pregame in terms of what you want to check. And these are things that you want to check before going out and play on the weekend, guys, or of course going, to an event, right? So that way you're not having to be sidelined, stuck out there trying to mess with the marker, and instead just having a good time and being able to play. And of course, if there's little small issues, you know how to solve them. Okay, guys, everything as always, the first thing you're gonna want to make sure that's on your list is going to be a toolkit. Right, so make sure that you have your toolbox, your toolkit ready, just like I showed you guys on the T15 video. I have my chrono in there as well too. So you're gonna want to chrono your marker, and we'll kind of get into that when I start going to the Heatcore system. But you just want to make sure you have all the tools, all the Allen keys. The M17 is a little bit more difficult, a little bit more time consuming to break down than the T15 with its AR style kind of 2-pin setup. But the good thing about the M17 is there's less maintenance than you can think. You actually think. So as always, I'm going to start from the tip to the butt of the marker. And first things first, guys, I really love the barrel of the M17 and how it's mounted in the receiver versus the T15. Of course, make sure any muzzle device that you have attached to the barrel, right, whether that's a muzzle brake, flash hider, or a mock suppressor, you got it threaded on completely, hand tight down, guys. You don't have to wrench on it, right, on the barrel or the muzzle device. Just hand tight it until it's tight. If you like, I always apply a little bit of thread paste or a very low Loctite onto the threads of the muzzle device so it doesn't back out. Last thing you want is that thing loose, falling apart when you're not paying attention. And of course, maybe causing a break or something like that with the FSR. Now, getting back to the way the barrel is mounted in the M17, as any standard like A5 thread marker, guys, is literally just threaded in. I love that about the M17 versus the T15's little barrel adapter. Straightforward, it's simple. You just thread it into the receiver, it locks up, you're good to go. I wish in the future maybe markers will figure out a different way of mounting the barrel onto the marker body, but you know, just for obviously changing out the barrel or just, you know, ensuring a zero, that type of thing. But I think for this type of marker, this is the way I would prefer it versus the T15 style. Especially when you talk about how the T15 has a little barrel wobble issue and you got to make the adjustments. They're not hard to do, guys. Check out our videos about that, but it's just another thing that's unnecessary. Real quick about the barrel as well too, guys. You know, I want to say that the threads on the barrel, that's what I wanted to talk about, was that even though you don't want to over tighten them, you don't need to thread lock them. Okay, so don't use any strong Loctite or anything like that, or thread paste. Actually, I suggest putting a drop of the liquid lube that comes with your M17 marker on the barrel thread. So that way it's, you know, it doesn't lock in place and then you're not able to unscrew it. For whatever reason, some people really over tighten their barrels, and also, you know, as dirt, maybe paint from a broken shell, if you get a paint break for whatever reason, it'll cause a barrel to kind of stick inside the receiver, and then you're gonna have a really hard time unloosening it out on the field to, like, you know, swab it out. So a trick I use is just put a little, you know, very small drop of the lube onto the barrel threads, and that'll prevent it from jamming up for whatever reason, okay? As part of our toolkit, of course, just real quick, just make sure you have any maintenance items for your M17. You know, the basic package that comes with every M17 is the air chamber O-ring, and then also the little bumper washer O-rings between the air chamber and the bolt, and of course a bottle of lube, and we'll get into that in a second. So moving down, guys, you know, any barrel device, like for example, I have a little Picatinny barrel adapter here, and of course our M110 SAS exclusive handguard, right, guys? I really love this marker, right? It's a clone of the, obviously, the M110, you know, semi-auto sniper system rifle. But just make sure that all the bolts and all the hardware, for example, this Picatinny adapter has a little Allen key that mounts it onto the barrel. Just make sure that it's tight and make sure that it's thread pasted or low Loctited. Same thing with any foregrips, or personally, I think a bipod would work better on this setup, since this is kind of a sniper marker versus more of like a DMM or a assaulter type of marker. But I think a bipod would work really well with this marker setup. So yeah, just make sure all the hardwares are fastened. As we move back, like I was telling you guys, on the M17, the way to disassemble it requires a lot more, you know, hardware disassembly than the T15. So, you know, all these screws right here on the body, on the mag well, on the barrel, the handguard adapter piece, you want to make sure that they are Loctited. Like I said, use a low Loctite. I usually use green or purple, or like I said, a thread paste, and so that way they're not backing out. Same thing with the hopper feed adapter, right, piece here, to make sure that that doesn't back out and fall out on the field. Honestly though, guys, the cool thing about the M17, even though it's a little bit more pain in the butt to disassemble, you really don't have to disassemble the receiver on any given day of playing. You know, unless for some strange reason you got a lot of paint breakages in there. But, you know, as I'll show you in a bit, you can literally slide the whole heat core out. You can remove the barrel, and literally you can swab the whole inside of the receiver very easy. And then of course, to clean it, a trick like I was telling you guys on some of my posts is using an air compressor with a blowgun to clean all the little nooks and crannies is a really good trick that I've used, and I'm telling you guys to use to clean your marker of all the little paint debris, FSR shells, or whatever, okay? Now, moving back, let's start from the top. Make sure that you're zeroing your marker. This should be 100% on your pregame checklist if you haven't done so already. And if you have zeroed your marker, just double check your zero, right? go out, set out a target at 20 yards, right? As you guys know, all the zeros should be set at 20 yards for the crossbow scopes. And so just ensure your zero is correct with the FSR that you're firing. Make sure that all these bolts are once again Loctited and tight. You don't want any of this stuff coming out loose on the field, so you can imagine that's going to throw off your accuracy and precision if any of these things are loose. You know, ensure that your riser hardware is tight and adjusted. Another thing I like to do too is just to make sure that if you wanted to have different hold marks on your riser, go ahead and test out the different holds at the different distances, and then you can mark your riser adjustment here and say, okay, hey, this mark is for 100 yards, this mark is for 80 yards, and so forth and so forth. So literally, instead of having to guess, you can literally just turn it to that particular hold, and it's zeroed for that hold. Now, real quick, same thing with the iron sights, guys. I know it's not useful in play, but just for the sex appeal of your marker, right? Make sure that they're not falling off, right, during gameplay. The M110 is really cool because its front sight is integrated into the handguard, as you see here. And of course, the rear sight is an aftermarket Picatinny attachment. So just make sure the hardware and everything like that is tight. And of course, you have some type of Loctite or sealant for those. Okay. Get that down real quick. There we go. Now going back down here, the trigger and also the selector switch, right? Make sure that the selector switch Allen bolt is tight. One thing I love about the M17 versus the T15 is the selector switch is done right. It's super positive. You can really hear the clicks, as you guys can see there. Obviously, the M17, another cool feature is that it includes FA, right from the factory, so you don't have to get an optional. Like I tell you guys, man, the M17 is a bang for a buck, a great deal. For $250, and then of course for another air tank for about $320, you're getting a fully FSR capable, reliable FSR platform with full automatic, right? The trigger, guys, on the M17, you're gonna want to be check this as part of your pregame checklist, especially if you're gonna be shooting full auto. In the manual, it tells you how to adjust it to get the right full auto setting, so make sure you're checking that if you plan to shoot full auto. I don't do full auto, guys. I think it's kind of a waste of air, and it's a waste of freaking first strike rounds, and you really don't need it to be productive or effective, I guess. But your guys' call. If you guys want to play with full auto, just make sure that you guys are checking that out, okay? Let's go into the magazines next, because obviously as we're going down, I have two magazines here for you guys. I have the Grison 11 round magazine and the 18 round factory magazines. Guys, so the round count real quick, that is with FSR specifically. With round ball, typically you might be able to load 1 or 2 more rounds, so don't take, like obviously this is an 11 round FSR magazine, it means it'll hold 11 rounds of FSR. It might hold 12 or 13 rounds of round ball. And same thing with the 18 round FSR magazines, it'll hold 18 rounds of FSR, but it will hold a little bit more rounds of round ball. But I don't push round ball here, guys, on my channel. What I push on our gameplay and everything like that, I promote FSR. Let's speak about this magazine real quick, guys. Love the Valken M17 magazines, the new ones. These have been improved over the Milsig, guys. Go check out that video where I make that comparison. But what they fixed on it was the collar and some of the edges where the collar mates up with the magazine. There's no longer a lip where the FSR round can catch, and just the texture, the smooth surface of the collar now is a lot better compared to some of the older magazines. And so this is one of the most reliable FSR capable magazines out there, guys, the Valken M17 18 round magazine. It also has the correct follower where it has like down to that cup concave shape to it, guys. So really good magazine. But pre-game checklist, obviously make sure that they're clean, guys. Anything wrong with your magazine is going to cause an issue with your magazine fed marker, right? So just make sure that your magazines are clean functioning properly, you assembled them properly, nothing's broken or missing, nothing is going to cause the FSR to jam or flip. Now let's go into the Gryzen magazine real quick, guys. These magazines, when you buy them brand new, listen to me, these things are trash when you buy them brand new. I hate to say it, Gryzen, I don't know what you need to do, or whoever makes these magazines, you guys need to fix it. But there is a fix, guys. We can fix them ourselves. It's just kind of crappy that they're trash from the factory. What the problem is once again the collar, guys. It always seems to be a collar issue with any of the M17 magazines that have issues, like the older M17 magazines, or specifically the Gryzen magazine. The surface, if anybody that's had a Gryzen magazine, go feel the surface, the inside surface texture of your Gryzen magazine. It's really rough. You want to sandpaper it down. Guys, go check out my video where I show you guys how to do that and make them super smooth like the new collar magazines, okay? Real quick too, you can use the collar from the new magazines onto your Gryzen magazines, but then obviously you wouldn't have, somehow you would have to get extra collars. But anyways, hey, Valken, maybe that's something you should, look into. We need collars, replacements, and that would solve the issue. But if you guys don't want to do that, like I said, go ahead and sand down the collar of the Gryzen magazine, and of course, sand down the lip that gets caught. So anything, like I said, any sharp edges or something like that, any rough texture, the FSR is gonna catch, guys. And if any one of you guys have played with the Gryzen magazine, you'll see that it'll jam the FSR if you don't make those modifications, okay? So definitely make those modifications, because the Gryzen magazine is a wonderful setup for a sniper marker like this, because it's short and compact, right? You can shoot the marker in the prone position because it sits lower versus the taller mag. It just makes for a really nice looking and functional setup with the Gryzen magazine. All right, let's move back. The charging handle, guys, there's not much maintenance or items you gotta look into there, but just make sure, obviously, the little pin is still in place, so it's not gonna fall out. Real quick topic on the charging handle, it's not a functioning charging handle, right, guys? Like the T15, where it'll actually charge the bolt back, so that way you can air the marker up. The M17 uses the Heatcore blow forward system, so it gets just charged when it gets pressurized. But that being said, it is functional if you have an issue where the bolt will get jammed into the barrel or the breech area. So for example, let's say your breech, your barrel area got dirty with paint, FSR shells. It's very rare. I think I've only seen it happen one time, but in all my years of playing, but the bolt can come forward and it can get jammed with all that extra debris, and then it won't retract. The spring that is supposed to push the bolt back to reset the heat core won't have enough spring pressure because it's jammed up here in the front area. And so what you can do at that point is then you can use the charging handle to pull the bolt back and reset it. And then of course you're going to want to clean that up, okay? But yeah, that's kind of some functionality of the charging handle. Let's talk about the heat core real quick. I'm not going to disassemble it, guys. There's a lot of videos out there that you guys can watch that will show you the disassembly, but the two key points that, let's just say the few key points that I want to mention about the heat core is that you definitely want to remove it as part of your pre-game checklist, right? There's two pins right here that's held in by cotter pins. You remove the cotter pins, and then these two pins come out, and then you can slide the whole heat core assembly out. You want to make sure that, let's talk about the bolt first. That's the piece that's the very forward piece that slides over the air chamber. So the bolt, you just want to make sure that you're lubing the outer surface of it with your liquid lube ever so slightly. You don't need to use a lot of lube, guys, right? Just use just a light coat to make sure that the bolt is sliding back and forth without obviously wearing, okay? And then the bolt is also two pieces. It'll unthread itself. It's never happened to me because I've always, checked it and make sure that it's tight. But just make sure that you guys do that. The two halves of the bolt can come separated if over a lot of usage. And so just make sure you're cleaning the heat core, right? Wiping it down and then re-oiling the bolt surface, okay? Obviously look inside the bolt to make sure there's no paint or debris, and then clean it out, you know, air blow it out is another good option as well too, okay? Let's go back. The air chamber, right? That's the inside piece that looks like the bolt, but it's the inside piece that the bolt slides over. There's a couple of things that you're gonna wanna look there, primarily the O-rings, right? So there's gonna be the front O-ring that your maintenance kit comes with. Just make sure that that O-ring is still good and lube it. You can use a grease. I prefer using a grease as well too. Other videos out there will show you to use a grease instead of the liquid lube. But that being said, guys, that O-ring isn't lubed that much. Don't over lube our markers. It's unnecessary. Just a light coat of lube goes a long way. And so just lube that O-ring if that O-ring still looks good, and you're good to go there. The other O-ring is going to be when you go to unscrew the air chamber from the back of the regulator assembly here. There's going to be a sealing O-ring there, just to make sure that you clean the area of any, you know, dirt, debris, just dirtiness that the air, you know, the compressed air goes through your marker. And then check that O-ring, and of course lightly grease it or lube it as well, guys. Like I said, I've lubed my markers, I've greased my markers. I like the grease better just because it lasts longer, but lube will work as fine, okay? Moving back, guys, any blow forward system is going to have a pressure release valve set up here. I'm not a less lethal guy, so I'm not going to tell you guys to go change it so that way you can increase your, you know, you can increase your FPS and increase your pressure. No, so, you know, we play paintball here, and so we're not trying to, you know, shoot outside of our FPS limit. So you're going to want to adjust this pressure release valve correctly. Next to it is going to be your FPS adjuster on the regulator. And just real quick, it's going to be that Allen key screw in the center and not the whole turning of the regulator knob. Okay, so you want to use the Allen key screw to adjust the FPS. And the M17 is really cool because it literally tells you which direction to increase or decrease your velocity. Now, you know, this is part of your pregame checklist, right? Go chrono, go zero your marker, and when you go chrono your marker to get it to whatever the field limit is, go and thread paste the screw on the pressure release valve first, right? Unscrew this completely. They do not come thread pasted from the factory. So make sure when you get your M17 and you go dial it in to, you know, chrono it, and then obviously just adjust the FPS correctly, go and thread paste that screw inside the pressure release valve. And what you want to do is you want to unscrew it slowly until you start hearing a leak coming out of the pressure relief valve. And then you want to screw it in slowly until you hear that leak stop. Okay, so that might be, you know, maybe a quarter turn, maybe that might be an eighth turn, whatever the amount of turns necessary to screw that pressure relief valve in so that it doesn't leak from that area is what you're going to require. And then because you thread pasted it, it's not going to leak during gameplay or during your use. And of course, because you thread pasted it, it's not going to back out as well. Okay, so make sure you do that. This is a very important step of setting up your FPS and dialing in your heat core, you know, so that way it's shooting consistently, is making sure that pressure relief valve is set correctly. Okay, guys? Okay, so once you guys do that, it's good to go. The thread piece is not going to back it out, but, you know, I would still check it from time to time. Use soapy water, right, to make sure that it's not leaking from there. And if it's not leaking, you're good to go there, okay? And make sure it's not backing out. Okay, speaking of the regulator, you can service it. I don't service it frequently, so I didn't want to include it as part of this pre-game checklist that you have to check at every game. But every once in a while, maybe make a schedule for yourself. Maybe that's every, you know, several games. Go ahead and, you know, disassemble the regulator here. Make sure that you reassemble it with the shims in the correct, you know, orientation. Clean it. Of course, there's an O-ring in there as well. Inspect that O-ring and grease it as well. But like I said, guys, I don't typically have to mess with the regulator as much. Okay, going back even further, let's talk about the air tank, right, guys? Always have part of your pregame checklist. Check the O-ring on the ASA. have a bunch of O-rings in your O-ring kit, guys, not worth it, right? It's a cheap O-ring, you know, pennies on a dollar, right? You can buy a bag of them for hella cheap, and just have those there as well. I don't personally unscrew and screw on my tank a lot, guys, so I don't typically have to replace this O-ring as much, but for whatever reason, if you guys are unscrewing your tank to service it, or maybe just, you know, air it up, for whatever reason, you want to have extra O-rings, because they do, you know, wear down from you having to unscrew and screw it on with the tank under pressure, okay? Another thing you want to check, obviously, is just check your low profile regulator. I've heard bad things about the low profile regulator from the first strike. I haven't had any issues with it, guys. As you guys can see how many markers I have here with this low profile. And I've yet to have one marker go down or not function correctly because of this low profile regulator. But I can see maybe you're over pressurizing it. Maybe, you know, people that have had way more. I've had a lot of rounds through these markers, guys, but maybe there's someone out there that had a buttload more rounds than I have, or just more cycles with it. So just make sure you have spare parts and you're inspecting this as well. Once again, right, make sure all the hardware for the guide rod, right, the M17 comes with this guide rod setup from the factory. We have it on our T15s as well, but just make sure that these screws are Loctited and adjusted properly. Make sure your buttstock is clean. There's a little rod here to engage the powder release. Some of the buttstocks, this can slide in and out, so just make sure that that's secure, okay? Yeah, so that's pretty much the M17, guys, from tip to butt. Like I said, guys, I love the M17. Once it's dialed in, the FPS consistency is a lot better than the T15. You know, it definitely leads to better accuracy. We're talking, you know, 3 to 5 plus or minus feet per second, versus the T15 sometimes can go up to 10 feet per second plus or minus. So it's just about dialing in the feet per second, the pressure relief valve, making sure that your heat core, it's very low maintenance, guys. There's really only two O-rings that you're looking at any given time on the heat core, so not very much maintenance involved, but just make sure they're clean and they're, you know, they're slightly lubed up. And yeah, that will be great. That will make you ensure that your M17 is functioning properly. The magazines are another key feature, but if you guys are using the 18 round magazines, you guys will have less issues. Oh, real quick before I end the video, another pre-game checklist that you guys should consider is just having extra magazines, right? You know, it saves you time from reloading in between rounds, and of course it'll give you guys backups if, you know, your magazine for whatever reason has an issue, gets dirty or whatever. Saves you the hassle of having to clean them during, you know, in between games, and you guys can just go play. But hey guys, that's our pre-game checklist of the M17 from Valken. What do you guys think? What are other things that you guys know, or tricks or things to check on M17? We would love to hear it. I'm sure the community would love to hear it as well, so post it out to help everyone out. Hopefully, guys, you guys found this video informative. Please, if you guys you know, have any comments or questions, please let me know. Love you guys. I'll check you guys next time. Peace.